This is Contractor Sense with Ruth King.
Welcome to Contractor Sense. Here you discover ideas, tactics, news, and information that matters to your contracting business and you. I'm your host, Ruth King. This episode is sponsored by HVAC Trust Books. Go to hvactrustbooks.com to discover how this tool can help you close more sales. Thank you for joining us. Here is how we will help your business and you today. What if your sales team is in a funk? Normally, great salespeople can't close much of anything right now. My guest today, Kathleen Murphy, has helped business owners revive sales teams with great success. I originally did this interview on Profitability Revolution Paradigm and wanted you to hear it because I know that you will discover great ideas to keep your sales team closing. Kathleen, welcome to Profitability.
Thank you, Ruth. I'm glad to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So you spent a whole lot of time in sales and marketing and reviving sales team, mainly in tech, right?
Yes, that's correct. Over 20 years in tech.
So, but salespeople in tech are, from my perspective, and tell me whether I'm wrong, a salesperson is a salesperson is a salesperson. Doesn't matter whether they're in tech or whether they're in shoes or whether they're in a service business. Is that right?
That is correct. Fundamentally, they're all generally pretty competitive. They want to win and they want to make lots of money. And they need you to help you do that.
Have you ever seen a salesperson who wasn't money motivated?
I have, and they didn't generally last very long in sales. It wasn't the right position for them. Somebody told them that they should be in sales and that it wasn't the right fit.
Right. So they went through what I would call the career readjustment program.
Yes, that's correct. That's right. To make room for the next person that really wanted their role.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I have never met a person who was in sales that wasn't money motivated. I've met some very introverted people who turned it out to be phenomenal salespeople. I don't know whether you found the same thing.
I have. Surprisingly, when I've taken a look at their backgrounds or I've met them at first and they didn't necessarily come across as an extrovert, those are the ones that always surprise me, the ones that are introverted. And because I always had the perception that you need to be a super extrovert to be successful in sales, and that isn't the case. But generally they are. But some of the introverted ones are more strategically minded, or thinkers, and so they tend to do best in certain roles. Ones that are maybe more aligned with longer term deals, really high value deals that take a lot of strategy and thought to go into them to bring them to a closure.
And patience.
Oh, enormous patience, but that isn't necessarily something that most salespeople have at the top of their list of their strengths either.
No, definitely not. A patient salesperson. I have to think about that one for a while.
Not a good equation.
No, all right, so let's get into it. What happened?
So I was brought into a Northeast well-known technology company that had a new business sales team who, for all intents and purposes on paper, looked like it was a great team. The challenge was that they weren't hitting their number and had not hit their number for over 10 months during the year. They got somewhat close, but close wasn't good enough. And it wasn't supporting the company the way that they needed them to be supported. So I got called in to take a look at their situation because they were just beside themselves in terms of trying to figure out how do we make this team work and what's going on behind the scenes that we're not able to see. Clearly, they were having some challenges in just identifying how to motivate the team and how to get the team to perform. So I was asked to come in. I had been working with their marketing side of the house for a number of months. So I knew the marketing side of the team pretty well. And I knew some of the people on the new business side of the house as well, but I wasn't working with them day to day at that point. So they called me in and said, we don't have any suggestions in terms of how you're going to make this happen. We just know that you can figure it out, Kathy. You're good at this sort of thing. You're good at problem solving. Help us out. We're at a complete loss here. So I said, all right, well, as long as you kind of give me carte blanche to do what I do best, then let me go and I'm going to make that happen for you. So I began working with them in the November timeframe. I met with all 12 of the members of the team. I met with their director, and I also met with the general manager of the division. And I took lots of notes, and I was calculating in my mind, okay, what's going on here? It looks like, in talking to all these people, there seems to be a fundamental thread here in terms of what's happening to the team and the dynamics. And the fundamental element that seemed to be missing, that management was not taking into consideration, was that the team had just lost their belief in the fact that they could hit their number. And so they were all completely demotivated. And they just, were coming to work each day, not bringing their A game. They weren't working together. They weren't paired up with the right partner in their business model, the way that they typically were partnered. And they fundamentally were lacking a few of the skills that I anticipated that they would have. And so what I did was to come up with a formula to allow and work with each one of them on the elements that they needed to work on to be successful. But most importantly, to believe that they could hit their number, because as you know, oftentimes sales is not only the execution, but it's in your mind in terms of thinking, I'm going to make this happen, and then thinking it through and executing on that.
All right, let's go back, because this has been going on for 10 months, you said, right?
I had been.
Yeah. So did they just let it spiral down, or the sales manager should have, granted you fixed it. I'm Kathy, I'm not saying that you didn't, but it was 10 months into this before the sales manager woke up?
Well, the sales manager, and I've seen this happen before, they had come from an individual contributor role and been put into the sales management role without any coaching or any education in terms of how to successfully go about being in that role as a manager. And so they were fundamentally struggling with how to help the team perform. So that was a big thing that wasn't an aha moment for me, but for the company, it seemed to be something that they just blatantly missed.
Yeah, I would think that, my thing has always been, if you're really good in the field, becoming a sales manager is a totally different skill set.
It is. It is. And so the skills were just not fundamentally there for the manager who is managing that team, at least initially.
All right. And so 10 months into this, you walk in the door and we start with goals. Isn't that normal? Did they buy in? This is really the question more than anything else.
So they had their goals, but their goals didn't mean anything to them because they weren't aligned with the right teammates to strategically work on deals with one another to make them happen. And then a couple of their top performers had missed their numbers for a couple of months in a row. And one of the team members was also setting the tone for the team each morning. And if that person happened to be in a bad mood that day, the numbers looked even worse.
Oh, no. So he was like the de facto team leader, even though he may not have been sales manager, correct?
That is correct. So each morning I came in, I had to work with him to reset, recalibrate him to make sure that he was going to be in the right frame of mind in order to perform not only for his boss, but for his teammates, and for the sake of them being successful.
Right. So I would imagine that he needs to go listen to the motivational tapes or something. I don't know how you did it, but we'll go through it from there. So how did you build up the team confidence? Because if they're not making their numbers, it can become a very big downward spiral and going down and down and down and down.
Sure. So what the one thing that I use as a fundamental element to help teams in that situation is to get them to a point where they understand what their own strengths are. And when they don't understand what their own strengths are, they sometimes are going in the wrong direction. And so when you point them back into the right direction, once they understand their strengths, it makes all the world of difference. And I am a Gallup certified strengths finder coach. And so I used the platform of Gallup to identify what their top 5 strengths were. And that's where I started.
That's good, because once they realize them and understand them, everything else becomes easy.
That's correct.
Easier. I'm not saying easy, wrong word.
Well, it becomes, there's less resistance. And the best part was moving to the point beyond them understanding themselves, but moving to the point of understanding their teammates as well.
Right. So we start becoming a team again.
That's correct.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. So we did that, and then the timeline. How long did it take? You started the first part of November. By the end of the year, where were we?
Yep. So we started early November, and by December 31st, we had not only hit but exceeded the sales number that they were asked to hit, and it was almost a sheer miracle, because the team that had been carrying them for the 10 months throughout the year missed their number. So it was rather ironic in that the team that had been underperforming the entire time had now overperformed, so that the team that missed their number, they came out basically at par. And
yeah, so at that point, it's like, okay, we carried you for 10 months, and now for the last 2, you carried us. That's interesting.
that was their holiday present to the other team.
Yeah, so at the end of the year, we start the year off, and when we're going to come back from break and we're going to continue this story. But so for all intents and purposes, it took about 2 months to get everybody on the same page and actually working together, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, Kathy, when we get back from break, we will tell the rest of the story. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching Profitability. I've seen my clients' salespeople struggle when a customer asks why they should use your company rather than the competition when your price is higher and you both are proposing the same equipment. I've seen technicians struggle when customers ask them whether they should replace an 18-year-old air conditioner. And most salespeople and technicians never ask the one question that most customers are concerned about, yet never ask. Can I trust you? I found a tool that gives your salespeople and technicians the ammunition to answer this question and more. And the tool works. How do I know? 68% of my clients are using it to increase sales and referrals. What is it? A trust book with your name on it as the author. More details are at hvactrustbooks.com. Warning, there is only one contractor per area that can get these great books. Some areas are already taken. They've gone to my clients. If you want your area and want to have a tool for your salespeople and technicians to increase referrals and sales, then go to hvactrustbooks.com now and reserve your area. I've seen my clients' salespeople struggle when a customer asks why they should use your company rather than the competition when your price is higher and you both are proposing the same equipment. I've seen technicians struggle when customers ask them whether they should replace an 18-year-old air conditioner. And most salespeople and technicians never ask the one question that most customers are concerned about, yet never ask. Can I trust you? I found a tool that gives your salespeople and technicians the ammunition to answer this question and more. And the tool works. How do I know? 68% of my clients are using it to increase sales and referrals. What is it? A trust book with your name on it as the author. More details are at hvactrustbooks.com. Warning, there is only one contractor per area that can get these great books. Some areas are already taken. They've gone to my clients. If you want your area and want to have a tool for your salespeople and technicians to increase referrals and sales, then go to hvactrustbooks.com now and reserve your area. We're back. Thanks for watching Profitability. I'm here with Kathleen Murphy, and we are talking about how to revive a sales team. So before the break, we started talking about, in about 2 months, this happened. And Kathy, I've got the numbers of the before we started on the screen now. And so November, they missed goal, for April, May, June, July, September, August, September, October, November. And then starting in November, we're close. And then in December, we went over goal, right?
Yes. That's correct.
All right, and just a little review, team dynamics and team building.
That's correct.
So talk a little bit about the Gallup certification that you have, because you mentioned that before the break, and I want everybody to understand how that can help a team.
Sure. So I was introduced to the Gallup StrengthsFinder concept probably about 7 years ago, and I've applied it to approximately 5, 6 teams at this point, all business teams. And what it does is it allows a person, through the course of taking a survey, online survey that takes about half an hour to complete, to then know what their top 5 strengths are. And Gallup believes that these top 5 strengths are innate. You've had these your whole life, you'll continue to have them, and this is what makes you tick. They also fundamentally believe that you should focus only on your strengths, forget your weaknesses. And so if you're not good at math, that's okay. You're probably great at something else. Focus on that and go from being great to excellent.
How about superb?
So that ideally that's where you want to be, is superb, in all 5 of your top strengths.
Yeah,
why not?
It's interesting because we have a tendency to focus on the negatives. Oh, I'm not good at math, or I'm not good at talking to people. Well, that won't be for a salesperson, but and we focus on that rather than what we're really, really good at.
That's right. So fundamentally, companies, when they have their performance reviews, will do exactly that. Focus on what you need to fix instead of focusing on, let's make you better and stronger at this because this does X, Y, Z and helps us exponentially. When you're working on your weaknesses, chances are you're only going to go from maybe good to great. And to your point, wouldn't you rather go from excellent to superb?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You get far better results, and you're much more engaged also when you know what your top 5 strengths are and you're good at doing what you're doing.
Yeah, because you don't feel like, oh my gosh, I got to do math again today.
Right.
It's like, oh goody, I get to do this, that type of thing.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
All right, so the changes were, you'd mentioned marketing. So the team worked with marketing. How did that change?
So part of what changed there is that the sales and marketing heads weren't necessarily seeing eye to eye, and they weren't listening to one another. So when one would offer an olive branch, the other one would misinterpret that sometimes and think that they weren't offering an olive branch. And then where the communication went from there.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I had to, exactly. So I was helping both sides to understand one another's languages, if you will. I always say that I speak both sales and marketing. And so I would work with both of them to basically sit in between them to translate what one another was saying if they missed it, either during the course of the conversations or after the conversation took place. And so I worked at fixing the communication between the sales and marketing sides. And that made a huge difference, because then when sales would put in a request, marketing would actually understand what they meant, and vice versa.
Sure. And I think one of the things you talk about is having fun. And I think that's also important, because and tell me whether I missed the boat here, I normally see when sales start spiraling down and down and down, nobody's having any fun.
No, not at all. So that was one of the things that I introduced. So I first introduced, we talked a little bit earlier about the timeline. So I introduced the concept of strengths finders to them, told them what all their strengths were, then revealed to the entire team what one another's strengths were, started pairing them up with others on the teams that it makes sense to do the pairings. It's kind of like food and wine pairings,
sure.
But in this case, it was people pairings. And then I introduced some activities that were team building activities that allow them to have fun with one another, because they needed to be able to enjoy one another. It couldn't just be constantly about work. And fortunately, the company sanctioned these fun events, if you will, that we did, and they weren't necessarily costly events. The one that was probably the most costly was when we went bowling one time, and that wasn't too expensive. But the other ones were done in-house, and they were designed to support getting to know one another better. One of the strength building, team building activities that I did for fun was we had this challenge where they had to write 5 nice things about each other. And so that may sound like a stretch, right? Coming up with 5 nice things about each of your teammates. We had them do that. Then we got into a room and they revealed to one another what those were. And it was really kind of magical in terms of how that was one of the most pivotal points in terms of changing the dynamics of the team to also shift to start believing and be motivated by one another.
Right, and I think what you're doing is you're looking at it. I mean, if somebody's saying 5 great things about you and it's an entire team, somebody else is saying 5 great things about you, you end up probably feeling pretty good.
Exactly, and that's what they needed to feel, was because they were feeling really bad. They'd come out of the first 10 months, each month at the end of the month, having been basically told that, that wasn't good enough, and what's wrong with you,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. So how did the sales manager change?
The sales manager changed because he started to finally have a tool that he could use, which is the Strength Finder's top 5 strengths, to know what made each of the people on his team tick, so that he could customize how he worked with each individual to help motivate them and to help work with them to communicate with them to overcome any challenges that they were having, or to also understand how they were maybe interacting well or poorly with somebody, so that he could do something about that.
Right, okay. So impact is basically increased teamwork, right?
Yes.
Increased communications.
Yes.
Increased interactions.
That's correct. That is correct. And also mentoring. I spent a great deal of time mentoring both the head of sales as well as each of the team members. And it was based on what I felt, based on the notes that we had collected early on when I first started working with them, that were items they needed some additional assistance on. And that made a tremendous difference. And sometimes I would also just do small things, such as I would notice that they weren't necessarily coming in the best mood in the morning. I'd maybe just send them a joke, or I'd send them a picture of something, or something inspirational. Or sometimes I'd go over and talk to them and just say, hey, how are you today? What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes that's all it takes. Notice, something seems to be going on in the back of your mind. What's going on?
Exactly, exactly.
And that's all it takes. All right.
That's right.
So we understand strengths.
Yes.
We leverage their strengths so we don't have to do math anymore.
That's correct. Exactly. Exactly.
Except for those of us who love math.
Right. Well, they sort of liked the math when it worked in their favor, when it was, what percentage of this deal is going to come their way, or how much are they going to make from this deal. Sure. They love doing math in those instances.
But reading a P&L on a balance sheet, no, that's not their thing.
Not their thing, not so much.
But I think what you're saying more than anything else is that if we get them focused, we get them doing their strengths. Now, obviously, they have to be able to sell, right? Because that's a given.
Yes.
And you know that they could sell simply because they had done it before and they had been successful before. And just getting them and basically scraping them off the bottom of the barrel.
Exactly, exactly. And also, one of the things that people may not take into consideration, which was a large also part of the transformation of this team, was where they were sitting and who they were paired with. So I made recommendations in terms of how, by simply moving who they were sitting with and interacting with, and which particular team members they were paired up with, how that could have an impact on their numbers. And it did. It significantly had an impact on their numbers, and it continued to do so past the time when they first hit their number.
Right. So basically, you did this in 2 months, and then what happens?
So at the end of December, they were thrilled, and they were about to roll into January, and they thought, oh my gosh, we hope that just wasn't an anomaly.
Yeah.
So they asked me to stay on, and so I said, sure, I can stay on, and it was for an undetermined amount of time at that point. So I stayed on through January, and they hit their number and exceeded it again in January. They then said, can you stay on again next month? So I said, yes, I'll stay on again next month. February, hit the number. Again, in March, hit the number. And then I said to them, I think you're good. And I said, I could continue to stay here, but you really have all the elements you need in place to be able to do this successfully on your own. And they said, well, could you leave some of your special little pixie dust with us, because you have some magic? And I said, the magic has already been sprinkled, and it's going to continue to happen. You just need to trust in the fact that it will. The team is in good shape now.
Yeah, and I assume they still are.
Yes, they are. They're continuing to do very well.
All right. In the last minute or so, you've written a book, right?
I have, yes.
It's called Wisdom Whisperer, right?
Yes, it is.
All
There
right.
it is.
So let's talk a little bit in the last 2 minutes or so we have, the last minute or so we have together. What's the book about and where do we get it?
So the book is about what I wish I knew when I was in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I never had an official mentor. So I thought to myself, well, I've been mentoring people for years. I'm part of the Women Unlimited program, which mentors executive women. I've mentored Babson MBA women. And I thought, how can I reach a wider audience? The only way to do that, I knew, was to write a book and to be able to share my wisdom with others.
Very good. So it's available on Amazon and bookstores where?
It's available currently on Amazon as of last week.
Very good. Congratulations. I hope it does well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back with your business tip of the day. Thanks for watching Profitability. Thank you for joining us. Choose one thing that you discovered and implement it in your business. These ideas, tactics, and strategies help you make more money, have more free time, and give back. If you like today's program, spread the word. Please review this podcast on any device you are listening to it on. Help a fellow contractor make more money too. For comments or questions, call me at 770-729-0258 or email ruthking@hvacchannel.tv. Thanks for listening. Have a great and profitable day.